So, welcome back. Today's guest is someone who wears a lot of hats and is currently wearing one right now. And that is Adam LaBarr. He's a veteran real estate investor, business coach, and host of That Hat, the Biz Dad podcast, father of three. And he's worked with a ton of military vets navigating business growth, financial freedom, all while building your own business and being present at home. So, very excited to dive into some of your story, but also some of the themes that you've seen across all the people that you've worked with. So welcome to the show, Adam. Excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Fife. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'd love to start with your journey and maybe taking us back to when you first had an inkling of entrepreneurship.
Boy, entrepreneurship. So I grew up never knowing anything about entrepreneurship or business owning or real estate or anything. Like I was a military brat turned military guy. And it wasn't until I married my wife that I even thought about, so she had this magical thing called a savings account that I had never heard of before. And I was like, I don't know anybody that saves money. Like it's not something that your typical enlisted guy does. That we go out and waste our money pretty rapidly. The government gives me a paycheck every 2 weeks. So I've got 2 weeks to spend it until the next one hits my bank account, type of thing. So it was a different world for me. And then she was like, hey, we should invest in real estate. And I was like, well, that's weird. I'm going to go invest in the stock market because that seems to make more sense to me. So then I lost some money in the stock market and I went with my head down talking to my wife. I said, what was that again you said about real estate? So her mom had owned a house as a rental property, and her grandma owned two houses as rental property. So she just kind of saw that and thought that's what we should do. So I started researching, and I'm very much a researcher, data type of guy, and realized, boy, we can totally do this. And I think that we should buy apartment buildings. So I told my wife that we should buy apartment buildings, and we'd been married for a couple of years, and she was like, I'm sorry, we're going to buy what? And sure enough, our very first investment property was a 62 unit apartment. And that was kind of how I got started into real estate / business. So.
Very cool. So I want to get into that process, like the research process a little bit, what that was like. But maybe even stepping back a little bit more, how did you end up in the military? What was that story like? And you said you were a military brat. So I'd love to hear a little bit of what that was like for you as well.
For sure. Yeah. So I grew up in 5 different states in the U.S. So I bounced around all over the place. Graduated high school in Central New York. Both of my parents were Air Force, and I didn't know any different. I signed up to go in the Air Force at 16 years old. I knew that was what I was going to do, mainly because that's what I saw my parents do. So I was like, well, I guess that's what we do. I didn't think anything of it. I said, that looked like fun. We traveled a lot, and I'm going to go do that. So I signed up. I signed up before 9/11, and then 9/11 happens while I'm in high school. So obviously things are kind of changing a little bit and going, oh, wow, like the world is going to be a different place in the military for me than it was for my dad type of thing, But I went in right after high school. A month after I graduated high school, I was in basic training and off into the Air Force doing my thing. So, I didn't know any different. I never would have thought about going to college. I didn't know anybody that went to college. My friends, of course, some of them went to college, but I had a bunch of friends that joined the military. I didn't know anything different. I was like, okay, this is just what I'm going to do. I lived life a little bit more on autopilot as opposed to kind of choosing the path that I wanted or thinking about anything. I just kind of went with what seemed to make sense based off of what I experienced already.
Yeah. And how did your time in the military set you up for what you're doing now? Like what would be what are like a couple key things that have really helped you along the way?
Boy, I'd say probably a lot. I shouldn't even say probably. I said we should definitely say a lot. So like my very first apartment building, right? It was a 62 unit apartment. I went into it thinking that hey, dude, I've been to Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Africa, I've been all over the world doing all sorts of military stuff. But this business stuff is not like, this is all new to me. So I'll invest, I'll run some numbers. I'm an analytical type, so I'll run the numbers. But you guys run the operations because I don't know anything. And then as the thing continues, I start asking questions because that was a very, very rough deal. My very first deal was very rough. Like it was one of those that had I not already invested in other deals, I might not have continued on real estate at all because it was just so bad. We got, long story short on that one, we lucked out. The market kind of helped out a little bit and changed the way that it was going, and we were able to sell it without losing money. But I started asking questions. I said, hey, have we done this or have we done that? Or hey, can you show me the quotes on these? And can you show me like the contracts we did on those? And it was a lot of, we didn't like actually sign a contract. We just kind of did these. So we said, like, we didn't even get quotes from other people. And they're like, no, it's like all of this stuff I learned in the military. Like, you get 3 quotes all the time for different things. You're following up on the contract. You're verifying what's actually in the contract, who's responsible for what. You're doing weekly phone calls. You're making sure things are happening. You're leading teams. I've led teams. I've led operations literally all over the world. I'm making sure that team members are in the right place, doing the right things. And I was like, boy, all of these things that I've learned, I can actually apply in business. I can actually apply in, like, right down to core values, right? When I was in the military, like, the Air Force had core values, and I always looked at them as like, oh, great, core values, right? And then sure enough, I start running business and I want core values in my businesses as well, right? I now have core values for our family. Like, these things are important to know that we're all moving in the right direction, that the business, like, everybody is on board with these same ideas in mind. We're all in the same boat. If somebody doesn't meet the core values, they don't need to be on the team. If somebody doesn't meet the core values of the branch that you're in, they don't need to be in the military. It's time for them to move on. Like, they go be a civilian somewhere. So I'd say there's so much overlap, but it took me some time of kind of realizing that I can apply all of that knowledge into the business world. And that was just a little bit, it took me a little longer than I wish it did for me to realize that.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a bit more. So you said the first deal did not go maybe as expected.
Yeah.
It also sounds like a pretty big jump into real estate investing. Most people might get like a fixer-upper house or something, or a small rental property. What was it about diving into a 62 unit building, and how did that come to be?
Well, I mean, if you're going to screw up, you might as well screw up really big, right? Like, let's really screw
up.
A
lot of people don't think like that,
right? No, it was one of those that's, I was doing, again, going back to all the research stuff, right? So I looked at the houses, and then what I did is I kind of back planned what I wanted to do. And I'll say that my thought process has changed since this point. But back then, I looked at it and I said, okay, what life do I want to live, and how much income do I need to live that life that I want to live? All right. Okay. Well, if that's the case, this is the life I want to live. This is the income that I need. Okay. How do I build to that? Okay. Well, let's backtrack. I need X amount of houses to do that. And I said, that X is a very large number. And then the more I started researching it, it was like, okay, well, you could also buy apartment buildings. I said, oh, well, that's interesting. Let me buy like an apartment building. I mean, that's a lot more doors. Like, I wonder how that works. Okay. Well, I can have just a few apartment buildings, and I might be able to get to the numbers that I'm looking for, as opposed to, a couple hundred houses. So I started digging into that more and started researching it more. And then I did probably 3, maybe 4 years of just research, digging into it, trying to learn as much as I could, which I don't recommend people do that much of it.
And so what was happening as you were doing 3 years of research?
Yeah, well, I was still in the military, right? And I was married. I was still in the military. I'm moving around to different places. I'm deploying to different places, and I'm trying to still just learn as much as I can. Like, okay, what can I do here? Where can I go? And it was one of those, I was stuck in analysis paralysis. It was like, hey, no, I need this one more thing. Okay, I need to go to this one more conference. I need to do this one more education thing for me to really trust that I know what I'm doing. But I joined a group called Wheelbarrow Profits. There we go, with Jake and Gino. And that was a game changer for me. I loved their podcast. I loved everything about it. And I was like, oh, let me join this community of people who are doing the same thing. And there's I think it's Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you're around most, right? And I got myself in a room full of all these people that were the same as me. We're all trying to get something going, but that's all we talked about. And that's all we were focused on. And then one of the folks in there, I was answering a bunch of questions, reached out to me and said, hey, I've got this 62 unit deal and we need another partner on it. Are you interested? So it's like, let me find out. So I did some research on the numbers, the area, did all the stuff. I was like, hey, let's do it, and jumped in. So it was really like giving back into the community is what caused somebody to reach out to me and say, hey, let's go ahead and do this. But if it wasn't for actually getting in that community, period, I would have been trying to figure out how to do it on my own, which is completely unnecessary.
Yeah. And so you started with that deal. Mm-hmm. You're still in the military. What was the progression from there? And you're still bound, like you're still doing tours, you're still all around the world.
Yeah.
How do you have that happening as you're doing all these other things? And are kids in the picture yet at this point?
So my first kiddo is, and my second kiddo came shortly after our second closing. So we were living in Japan when we closed that 62 unit apartment. Shortly thereafter, I closed on or was a passive investor on a 132 unit apartment. And I wanted to see what it was like to be a passive investor in somebody's deal, and kind of how do the emails work, and how do we, because the first one was a joint venture with me and a couple of guys. And I was like, well, eventually I may need to get investors. Let me figure out what this is like to be an investor, so I know how to interact with investors. So I just kind of followed. I was Jake and Gino's very first syndication. And I was like, well, this is cool. Let me see what they're like. And I got to kind of watch how they operated and learn how to do all these things. So it was a lot of, honestly, like I would work my 9 to 12 hour shift in the military, come home, have dinner with the family, put the kiddo to bed, and then I'd be working. Right. And it's like, okay, well, now it's the opposite. I mean, again, I'm in Japan, so it's the opposite side of the world. So everybody else is waking up in that morning, and I'm, all right, here we are. It's nighttime. Let me send emails. Let me get on phone calls. Let me get all this stuff. Let me figure out apartments. Let me do some underwriting. So I'm like sitting in front of the TV, just typing away, doing some underwriting, putting all the stuff in the spreadsheets, trying to understand what's going on, trying to get another deal. So yeah, I went from the 132 unit that we ended up getting an 80 unit apartment building shortly thereafter, after my second kiddo was born. Moved back to the States and then got a 71 pad mobile home park. So we just kept kind of building it out. By this point, I'd already also joined the active duty passive income team as one of the owners there, to kind of walk people through how I'm building a multifamily portfolio while still in the military, which is a lot of fun. I mean, that company has grown a lot over the years, and kind of watching it from the beginning and building it out with the team has been phenomenal. So to show other people, like, hey, even in Japan, you can buy an apartment building and change your life for the better. So it was a lot to manage all at once. That's for sure.
Got lots of questions that are bubbling up for me. So we'll pick one way. So for somebody that is not investing in real estate at all, I have a sense that a lot of people would be like, I don't know if I can't do that, or like, that's not for me. I don't have the kind of money. I'm sure you've talked a lot of people through this. How realistic is it for most people, and what kind of funds do people need to actually step into this world and start to do something like this?
So I think it's super realistic depending on what your goals are, right? And everything comes down to, what are your goals and what's your why? Why do you want to do real estate, and what are your goals with real estate, right? And if we can establish what those two things are, then we can establish a plan, right? To say, okay, do you actually need to go buy a 100-unit apartment building? Probably not. More than likely not. Like, most people don't. That's why I said that, like, my thought process has changed a lot. Not only has the market changed, which has adjusted kind of how I'm moving forward, but also my thought process has changed. I would rather me, you, and another guy get together and buy a 10-unit apartment that we completely control, that we own, just the three of us. That is like, we can hold on to it for as long as we want, which I would love to never sell a property again. Is, okay, I buy a 10 unit and then I refinance it, pull all the cash out, which is tax free, because that's just that's the appreciation side of the house. You still have the debt on it, you still have all the stuff. So you pull your cash out, go buy another one, just the three of you guys, and then go buy another one, just the three of you guys, and just keep doing this over and over again. And you're going to end up with a lot of assets, with a lot of income, doing a lot of really good stuff, as opposed to buying a 100-unit property with 15 investors where you're paying all of them back and you're managing all of that. You're doing, like, there's a lot involved in that. So is it realistic that anybody that's listening to this can do what I did? Absolutely. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. You can get to the same end goal, if not a better end goal. I encourage people to get to an even better end goal by keeping the team small, staying focused on a deal where you can take it all down yourself, not have to worry about investors bringing stuff in. So, I mean, we've raised millions of dollars from investors and given them millions and millions back. But, in the grand scheme of things, I now have to sell assets because it makes sense for the investors, as opposed to keeping it because it makes sense for me. So how much money does it take? It depends. I mean, again, it depends. Your market may say a 10 unit is $50,000 a door, which is really cheap, right? Where some other market where I'm at, maybe a 10 unit is $200,000 a door. If I were to buy down the street from me, well, that's a little bit different, right? That 2 million versus 500,000, that's a big difference for folks. So again, like, where do you want to buy? What's your goal? What's your why? And that'll help kind of track the future for where you need to be.
Yeah. How did you balance? I use balance carefully as a term with dadpreneurs. Like it's a bit of a loaded term.
Yeah.
How did you balance your time and your energy in those early days?
Probably not so well. I think that if you're grinding for something, you should get rid of the idea of balance. If you're trying to grow something, and this isn't because like, and again, it's going to depend on your why and depends on what you're going for and all the stuff, right? I wanted to build a different kind of future for my family than I had ever thought about in the past, right? Like marrying my wife and seeing a savings account changed, like it rewired my brain. I talk to people all the time. Like it is like, we all have a wireframe for how we view the world based off of our previous experiences in life, right? So we'll look at anything in the world and put it into that wireframe and say, okay, I'm doing this because of this wireframe that I have. Okay, I'm seeing this and I'm applying that wireframe to it. So now I'm interpreting what just happened based off of my previous experiences, as opposed to stepping aside and going, okay, let's forget about all of my previous experiences. Why is it that this is happening? Why is it I'm choosing to do this? Where is it that we want to go, and reset it, right? So I'm trying to remember now again what the original question was. Oh, how the balance side of the house, right? So if your why is that you want to build something huge, then you have to be okay with sacrificing some of that time in one way, shape, or form. Like, what is it that you're going to sacrifice? Is it going to be the sleep? Are you going to sacrifice the fun? Are you going to sacrifice the family? Like, which one are you going to sacrifice? I wasn't willing to really sacrifice the family, right? So I made sure that I picked my kiddo up from daycare after work. We spent time together. I put him into bed, and then I worked. So I sacrificed sleep. I got rid of some sleep. I would sleep maybe 4 hours a night for quite a while.
How long were you operating on that kind of sleep?
Quite a while, in that 4 to 6 hour range, probably 3 years. And then I'm finally just now, like years later, kind of getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I can get, 6 to 8 hours of sleep. That's okay, as opposed to 4 to 6 hours of sleep. It's taken a lot for me to kind of go, okay, there's other things I need to adjust now and sacrifice differently. So now I'm in a season right now where I'm sacrificing the business growth for more time with the family and trying to get my health in a better spot. So, again, I'm looking at balance as a seasonal thing as opposed to a daily thing, right? Okay, there's going to be seasons for grind. And the key for that with my family is to have those conversations and say, hey, this is like, I need to put my nose to the grindstone here and really work hard. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to be extra stress. I'm going to need your guys' help. Right now, my wife is in that stage with her work. I'm homeschooling the kids. I'm taking care of them at home. Business is kind of very slow for me right now. Okay, no problem. Like, I know that's the season of life we're in right now. That's okay. So at the beginning, it was really rough, but I knew where I wanted to go. So that's why I was driving hard for it.
Yeah. And I think that like you hit on something really important, which is that seasonality of it. Mm-hmm. And I think any kind of entrepreneur understands that in a business, that there's seasons of business, but I think in life, there's an expectation of equilibrium, or there's like, that's one of the wireframes is 50-50 balance between things. Yeah. That's what balance is. And I see it as balance being that you're actually in alignment with your expectations, with how you're spending your time.
Yeah.
And when you're not in alignment with your expectations, that's when you feel out of balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been an interesting learning curve for me, and I don't want to sacrifice sleep. That's one of my things that I haven't been willing to sacrifice at this point. But I think that's the other thing that I think a lot of people struggle with too, is saying they want one thing, but not being willing to sacrifice or pay the price to get that thing, and then being upset or like stuck with that.
Yeah.
What would you maybe share with somebody where you're starting to see that trade-off stuckness, where they're saying they want something, they're not getting the results that they want?
There's a few different angles I take with that. Is, again, why is it that you say you want that? Because clearly, if you I tell people all the time, I want to be in better shape. Do I actually want to be in better shape? Because I'm not working out the way that I should be, right? You don't rise to your goals, you rise to your habits, as a good friend of mine says, right? Like your life doesn't look like your goals, your life looks like your habits. So what are you building into your life so that your habits actually represent the goals you're going for? And are your goals actually something you want to go for, right? Like if I say that, okay, one of my goals this year is to run a marathon, but I really don't want to run a marathon. Why did I even write that down as a goal? I wrote it down as a goal because somebody else has that as a goal? because people around me said that that's what I should do. Oh, like I have a goal of 1,000 doors. I want 1,000 doors. Why do I want 1,000 doors? Because other people say that that's a metric that they should hit, or is it because that's actually something that makes sense to me and it gives me the X, Y, or Z thing that I'm actually going for? So if you can break down why it is you're truly going for what is your actual goal based on an actual outcome that you're looking for, right? Go back to what is a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, time bound. Like are you actually doing SMART goals that are intending to get you to the end result you're looking for? If you're telling me that you're not reaching it, you either don't actually care about the goal, or you haven't created SMART goals, or you created goals for somebody else. So let's break it down and find out what that actually is.
So this is something I've seen, and it's very fresh because I just had a conversation with somebody this morning, and they were struggling with that. What are the goals that I'm hearing from other people that I like the sound of? And what is actually generated from me that I actually want? And curious about how you've distinguished between the two, or helped people get clarity on that internal sense of what I want, because there's so much noise happening around us. It's hard not to even subconsciously get pulled into some of that.
Yeah, I personally have gotten pulled into that multiple times, and still will get pulled into it once in a while, right? But if I'm sitting down chatting with somebody about it, it's one of those where, especially if they're married, right? We're talking to dadpreneurs here, right? So if you're married, you've got kids, the core of who you are, right? For me, the core of who I am is I'm a Christian, so that's where I need to go first, right? All right, where does God want me in my life? And I know one thing for sure. I may not always know what God has in store for me, but one thing I always know is he wants me to be a strong leader of my family. So how am I going to be a strong leader of my family? Which I think all men should be good, strong leaders of their family. I'm totally willing to have that argument with just about anybody. Strong men, leaders in our family. Okay, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that I'm bossing my family around. That doesn't mean any of that stuff. But that does mean that I want to work hand in hand with my wife, side by side, to lead our kids to become better human beings than we are. All right. So if I start at that core thing, okay, I need to follow God's will. I need to lead with my wife, lead our kids together to be better humans than we are. Now I can break down, what does that mean for us as a family? How do we want to grow? What is important to us as a family? What's important to my wife? What kind of security does she need? What kind of feelings does she need? What kind of things does she need to feel supported as my wife, that she feels protected and supported by me? Okay, well, if it's income security, maybe chasing 5,000 doors might not be the best thing for you, because there's going to be some ups and downs at the beginning. Maybe we'll get there, but right now, maybe I should have a job that brings in a steady income that we can save our money to be able to invest in our first property and build up to buying those 5,000 doors. But if we could really break down, what is it that's important to me, my wife, my family? Where do I want to bring me, my wife, and my family, and ride that train together? My first go at all of this, I created my entire future, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to do things, and then I started building towards that. And come to find out, my wife didn't want 90% of the things that were on that list, because I didn't chat with her about any of that stuff, right? So because it was all about what everybody else wanted, and it was like, no, like what everybody else, like I was at a Rod Khleif conference, right? And I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a big real estate, multifamily real estate coach here in Florida. Has events all over the place, right? But he ran around with Tony Robbins for a while. So he's got all of these ideas. Like, okay, so he's like, all right, let's write down the most amazing thing you could buy, like the most amazing life. Maybe it's a yacht, maybe it's a plane, maybe it's this. And so I'm writing. I was like, yeah, that does sound good. So I'd write that. Oh yeah, that does sound good too. And then I go to my wife, and my wife's like, I just want a house. Maybe we can have a garden in the back. Like super easy, that we could spend time together as a family. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that at all. That actually does sound pretty good, right? And really, like, what speaks to your heart? So stop listening to all the noise. Like, get in a room that's quiet, get in a room that's silent, just kind of start writing some things down. What are some of your favorite moments that you've ever experienced in your life? What were they? All right. Maybe start to try to, okay, how can I get more of those moments, right? Maybe your favorite moment was just going to the beach with your kids. Okay, well, if I went to the beach with my kids, that was one of my favorite moments. I don't need an airplane to do that. I could do that now, right? Okay, let me write that down. Maybe that means I'm going to buy a beach house. Sure, I can make that a larger goal, where I'm going to buy a beach house that we get to go to all the time, and I can use it as an investment property. But start with just being in a quiet room, writing down some of your favorite moments. Have your spouse do the same thing. What are some of your favorite moments? What are some of the things you'd love to see your kids succeed at and be around? What kind of people do you want to be around? What kind of life do you think that we want to have for the kids? Then start bringing out your goals. Not what everybody else says. Not what anybody, like, I would have never guessed I'd be homeschooling. It's not because everybody else said that I should do it. It's because I sat down and said, man, I want to spend more time with my kids. This means more to me. I'd rather homeschool than chase more business stuff. I think I would rather have a smaller business and a wonderful life with my kids at home than chasing all the business stuff. And I had to take away all of the noise and just look at, one of the bigger things people are saying now is signal versus noise. Get rid of all the signal, or get rid of all the noise, and just hone in on the signal. What is it we actually want as a family?
And I think what you are speaking to takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of intentionality. I think honestly, the easier way is to just consume the noise and be like, oh, that sounds good. Like, that's easier. There's less friction and like energy invested to figure it out.
Yep.
And the theme of courage has popped up for me a lot recently for whatever reason, but I was looking it up, and the root, I don't know if you know the root form of the word courage.
Mm-mm.
It's French, and it essentially is like of the heart.
Okay.
And so courage essentially means to live and act from your heart. And I don't know why that hits for me, but like there's something about that is hard work to do, to step out of the day-to-day, to create that kind of space, to tap into what's actually important for me that might actually be very different from everything we thought of and all those previous wireframes that were being sold.
But you also have to be comfortable with yourself, right? That courage to be yourself. Like, what is your? I think they call it in psychology like your id. Like, what is it? Yourself. Who are you? Right? There was a movie. I used to watch it all the time. I can't think of the name of it. It's got Mark Wahlberg and Charlize Theron in it, and they're like robbers. And they're going to steal some gold at the beginning.
Italian Job or something?
Italian Job, thank you. Jeez. So the bad guy on the Italian Job, right? So they're at the beginning, they're all kind of chatting back and forth about, oh, now that we got the gold, what are you going to buy? Oh, yeah, I'm going to buy this Aston Martin. And I'm going to buy this stereo system. And I'm going to buy the blah, 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 blah. This huge TV. I'm going to have a room just for my shoes. Everybody had their own thing. They were like, man, this speaks to me. This is who I am. And the bad guy, they were like, well, what are you going to get? And he's like, I don't know. Everything you guys said sounds nice. Maybe I'll get one of each of what you guys have. And then he takes everybody's money. He robs everybody, like spoiler alert. But if you haven't seen the movie, it's 20 years old. So no spoiling, I guess. But they go to his house and he's got everything that everybody else had because he couldn't figure out who he was and what he wanted with his life. So he had to take what everybody else wanted. So you have to be comfortable with who, like, we're literally getting ready to sell the house, get into an RV as a family, and we're going to travel the country when my wife retires. She retires later this year. And we're just going to sell the house, get in an RV. Not very many people do that, right? But that speaks to who we are. So be comfortable with who you are and what you want to chase down, and be okay with that.
So I definitely want to talk to that in a minute. Like how that decision making came about and what that's going to look like. But I want to loop back to you got into the real estate, you were in the military, super busy segment of time, and then started to teach people how to do some of this. Where have you gone from there? Like, take us between, like, you're about to sell your house and jump into an RV, going back to the first building you bought. What's happened in between all that? Because I know there's a lot of things.
Nothing at all. It's pretty boring in between there. Yeah. So, no, I mean, obviously I bought more real estates. We kept buying more and trying to kind of figure all that out. COVID happened also in the middle of a lot of that. So when COVID came in, that kind of changed everything. Like, we had investor emails that were going out like, hey dudes, like, you're not getting any money right now. We're putting everything on hold. We have to figure out how all of this is going to work. I don't know what the world is going to look like tomorrow. Like, trying to figure it all out. Like, kids are home. I can't send them to daycare. I can't send them to school. Like, my son was in kindergarten when it first kicked off, my oldest. And it was like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, I don't know what the heck is happening. So everything kind of went a little crazy. I toned down my purchasing because I was like, I don't know what the heck is going to happen. Had I known, obviously, that we were going to print, trillions of dollars and the market was going to keep on going crazy and interest rates were going to keep on dropping, maybe I would have bought more. But I'm very strict with my analysis. So I was like, I can't foresee that happening. So I'm going to postpone buying for a little bit. So we kept growing the education company and building that out in the meantime.
And what did that business look like?
I mean, it's grown a lot since. I mean, I was there at the beginning, and now we've got the 80,000 people in the Facebook group. We've got a bunch of different paid programs, non-paid programs. We've written a book. We've got, people all over the world. We have national conferences where hundreds of people come, and, we're on stage talking about how to get involved in real estate, how to grow your financial future, how to use either your GI Bill if you want to buy a house. I mean, we've got the benefit in America, right, where our military members have the VA loan, right? I said GI Bill, but the VA loan to be able to buy a house, right? So you can go to your first duty station, buy a triplex, use your no money down VA loan to buy a triplex, live in one of them, rent out the other two. And then when you move, now you just rent out all three of them. And now you have 3 cash flowing doors while you're somewhere else, moving somewhere else and going and buying another house. Like, that's a massive benefit that you can have by the time you retire. You could have 10, 15, 20 doors before you retire. Like, I had a friend of mine, when he retired, he had 27 doors, 27 houses, every one of them paid off. He didn't have a loan on a single one of them. He didn't like having loans on any of them. And was able to, like, really, really retire. Like, you not only now have your military retirement, but not to mention, like, the military, like, his pay from his houses were way more than the military pay. So he was like, if the military tells me to do something and I just don't like it, I don't need to stay in. Like, I like doing it. That's why I'm staying in, but I don't need to. So if I could teach folks how to do that and show them, like, this is actually something, the military has like a love-hate relationship with teaching you how to be wise with your money. They want you to be just wise enough to not go to jail and not have money problems so that you're not a liability. But if you become financially free, I mean, they really like that you're addicted to Uncle Sugar, right? Because if you need Uncle Sam's sugar every 2 weeks, then you're going to stay in. It keeps you coming back, Like, we don't need you to be independent. We need you to be dependent. Stay here. We want you to be good enough to not go to jail, and that's about it, But if we could teach you, like, no, like, you have fought for this country, you've been all over the world for this country, why not own some of it? Why not go and buy some real estate? So that was kind of the where we were going with that and building it out. And it's been wonderful to kind of watch it grow and see all the lives changed. And if I would have known when I was, 20 years old at my, first duty assignment, what I'm teaching folks now, what the company is teaching folks now, boy, my life would be astronomically different.
So what did that look like? You said you were in that in the early days, but you've stepped back a little bit. Can you just maybe share a little bit about those early days and, like, how it's grown and, like, what your involvement's been in and how you've decided to shift out of that if you have?
Yeah. So me and my partner, one of the other partners in the company, Tim, we built the multifamily education program together. I flew from Japan to his house and we recorded all the videos, like the first videos, it's like a white sheet behind us trying to teach people how to do all of this, get the slideshows all together. It's changed a lot since then. The production quality is astronomically different from, like, 2000, what was that, 17 when we first started recording, 18, somewhere around there. Astronomically different now, but it was just one of those, hey, let's bring as many people as we can on this ride with us to show them what, real estate can do for you. And then it was like, okay, well, we're going to need, like, actual employees. Like, we're kind of all owners and we're got to figure all this out. So, we've had partnership changes, we've had employee changes, we've had growth like crazy. Okay, well, now we need to revamp all these programs. What does our group actually need, right? This goes to the whole, even in business, one of the things that you may start chasing things that you shouldn't be chasing, right? We started implementing EOS and realized, holy gracious, like, I see you got traction over your shoulder. And I'm like, yeah, like, EOS is a big deal. Like, you should, like, it's crazy good for a business. And we started realizing, boy, we need to cut some stuff out. Like, we had built a Regulation A fund, which is a very difficult, very expensive fund to create, because we said, hey, our community here couldn't, like, if they don't have the money to invest in a house themselves, or they're not in a market where they want to, we can go and find apartment buildings for them. They can invest in this fund and we can go and buy these buildings and all this stuff. And then we realized, boy, our core focus needs to really be just being the best education company we can be. And this is a big distraction. So that's another thing I coach folks in business on, is like, what's distracting you from what you're actually really good at? What does your focus need to be in your business, so that you can be really good at that? And so that, we had to cut a bunch of that stuff out and stay focused on the education. And that made a huge difference. We were like, okay, well, now, we've created much better webinars. We're created a lot better programs. We have people going through in these cohorts, and it's created such a difference. And I was the COO of the company for a couple of years. And last, I think it was October, November timeframe, we hired me out of that spot, hired somebody into that spot to get me out of it. So now I'm sitting on the board. So that's been a huge change as well. It was like, hey, we're going through a lot of changes. We're implementing EOS. Like I do really well in problem solving in very difficult situations. Like if the bullets are flying over my head, I'm super comfortable. Let's make it happen. Like literal or figurative, I don't care. I can stay calm in those situations. But once things are normal, I'm very bored and I can't stay focused on a company well enough, right? So I'm really glad that we hired that spot out. But we went through all of these changes and built all of this stuff, put all the right people in place. And now I was able to kind of step aside, be on the board of directors and be like, okay, now I'm in a comfortable spot with the company and it's felt good.
I'm curious about, you said you're calm under fire. You like the chaos in a way. You're very good at problem solving, but when things are calm, it's kind of boring for you.
Yeah.
How is that playing out right now that you're stepping back from business?
It's difficult. It's very difficult. I'm at a stage where I'm having to really train myself that it's okay to not be driving towards something. Because I really want to be. I really want to be building. I really want to be solving problems. So it's helped that I'm, consulting other companies and doing that. I'm helping them problem solve in their stuff. Getting on phone calls, helping guide some friends that are going through business stuff, and I'm in the middle of a couple small acquisitions for other companies as well that aren't going to take up a ridiculous amount of my time as it comes later when I'm on the road trip and everything. But so I am finding ways to kind of scratch that itch, but I'm not in nearly the fire that I would like to be in. I would love to be in constant fire though. Like it feeds me to help people fix problems and watch the success go and watch them go, wow, I did not think we were going to get out of this. I did not think that this was possible. I love watching that on people's faces. So right now it is a little tough, I will say.
And how are you managing that? Like, how do you manage like your natural ability? And there's probably a gift there for you of being able to be in that space, but not get trapped by it and like the discomfort of being in a more kind of stillness and slower and maybe not as chaotic.
So I've had to have a lot of conversations with other guys that borderline coaching just to kind of get me understanding, okay, it goes back to that seasonality thing, right? Where if I had have stayed in that 4 hours of sleep every night for, 3-4 more years, boy, I would be in a really rough position, right? And I would have been enjoying it while it was happening. But the second I got a 10-hour sleep day, I probably would have woken up and been like, something's wrong with me. I got to figure this out. Like, I don't know. So it's taken a lot of like, okay, I'm in a different season. I need to be a really good dad right now. I've got 3 kiddos running around the house. I need to be a really good dad. I need to be a very supportive husband. My wife has a lot going on at her job. So I was like, all right, let me I can't say that I'm okay with it, but I am dealing with it in a way that just says, I know that it's a season that I need to fight through. I can stand on my head for months at a time if necessary. I can make this work for a couple more months. And my wife retires in August, right? And we're recording this in June, so it's not like I'm that far away from the life being able to change a little bit more, where she gets to do it. But she dealt with me being up in the middle of the night for a long time, and I can deal with her being at work for quite a bit, and kind of taking a step back from the business side for a little bit to be able to be an awesome present dad. This morning, I went bowling with my kids. It's Friday morning. They looked at me and said, "Hey, Dad, can we go bowling?" I looked at my calendar and I said, "You know what? I can. Let's do it." So I took them bowling. We had pizza. We had nachos. We did bowling. We came home. We played a little bit. We played video games at the bowling alley. And when I'm doing that, I'm okay. And I'm like, this is great. It's when I stop and I'm sitting again where there's the issue. And I'm like, you didn't do anything today. You didn't do anything successful. You didn't do anything that was good. You didn't do anything that was moving towards your goals. And then I have to remember, yes, I did. I was a very present dad. That's one of my goals, is to be a present dad, be a good man for them to be able to see. And that's a constant reminder of, like, I need to constantly remind myself that those are the things that are also on my goal list. And being in a group, I'm in a group called Go Abundance, where it's a bunch of entrepreneurs and men who are driving to be better whole life millionaires, right? Not just chasing money, but are you a good dad? Are you a good husband? Are you Are you healthy? Are you going on epic adventures? Are you doing the things that like, and we have this one sheet is what it's called, where you have your goals and you have these things like, okay, what are your family goals? What are your wealth goals? What are your health goals? What are your, all these things? Like, okay, right now, my wealth goals are kind of low on the totem pole. Let's just focus on the other stuff and be okay with it. It doesn't mean that every day is great. No, not at all. Some days I get very irritated. I'm very frustrated. My wife will come home and I'm like, yep, I was a worthless bum today. And she's like, no, you weren't. I'm like, I know I wasn't, but dag nabbit, I feel like it. Right. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's a nonstop thing. Like, we have to remember that there's more to this life than chasing the fire. There's more to this life, than doing all, like, I've got a couple guys. I said, right now, Adam, in your season, you should really just be focused on being a dad and going and working out as much as you can. Be the healthiest, best dad you can be. And that's all you should focus on. Don't worry about any of the other stuff. Which I probably should take that advice, but I still want to go buy businesses. So it's tough.
And what kind of businesses are you buying? So you got into real estate. At what point did businesses start being part of that?
Yeah. So businesses started, I went to a conference probably 2020, I think. Yeah, it was. COVID had been kicking off. It was summer of 2020. I'm at a GoBundance conference in Colorado. And Cody Sanchez was on stage, and this was before she became like huge. She was still obviously doing a bunch of stuff, but now she's like all over the daggone place. But she's standing there, and I was like, that makes a ton of sense. Like, and if I could buy a laundromat that's down the street from my apartment building, I can like double tap all of the stuff, like have flyers on my apartment building that you get a discount to go to my laundromat. Boy, this would make a whole lot of sense. Like, I would love to do that, but I was so focused on building ADPI and buying more apartment buildings that I never got to the business side of the house. And then ended up 2 years ago buying into one of my business partners on the education company. He's got a assisted living facility, which is much more of a business than it is a real estate asset. So I ended up buying into that, helping out with some of the construction side of the house, and realizing, man, I really like this business management stuff even more. I think I might be in a good point. Real estate's having a hard time trying to find something that's going to cash flow. So let me start looking at the business side of the house. So that's when I really started to kind of adjust my focus last year, especially changing to buying more businesses. Like, I already own a couple, so now it's time to buy more. Now there's a manufacturing company that I've been really trying to get to, but it's just been a little bit more difficult to get to the bottom of that one. There's a friend of mine is selling a escape room, believe it or not. I'm looking at buying that from him. Like, if I look at it and say, okay, is this something that I can see being a good long-term business, then I'm going to go for it. Right. I don't care. Like, I love the manufacturing side of the house. I love it. I would love to be able to buy a bunch of different manufacturing companies, honestly, because I like the tangibleness. I like working with my hands. I like being able to see a product at the end of it and be able to say, you know what, we need to develop a new product, or I see a niche somewhere else. So those are other businesses that I'm always looking for. And then I do consulting with any number of those types of businesses as well to kind of help them get up and running and scale to the right spot.
And so how many do you have right now, businesses?
3.
Okay. Yeah. And how many would you like to have?
30. No, I mean, I just said that because it's 10x, right? But I don't know if I ever want to stop buying businesses, right? So the way that I kind of operate it is, if you can, again, I do really well in the craziness, right? So if I can get through the craziness, put the right systems in place, hire and fire the right people, bring in the right talents to be able to run this thing, and then work on the operations from afar. I would so much rather have less return on the business because I have less time involved in it and I have the right people earning a good paycheck to run this thing really well. And I just come in with good business expertise that brings the right talent and figures out where the problems are that need to be fixed. I love doing that. So if I can do a bunch of those and just be the person that, like, when there's really bad problems, that's when I come in, like, I'm totally down with that.
Yeah. Super cool. So you got businesses, got real estate, and you have a podcast.
Yes,
and
I do. Which you have been on.
I have been on it. I was a guest, which was a lot of fun to be in the other seat. Tell me more about how that got started.
So to do that, I've got to rewind again to go back to some of the military time, right? I'll rewind even farther. When I was like 13 years old, I knew I wanted to be a dad. So it was like, I can't wait to go be a dad. It took me a while. I was not a dad at 13, thank God. probably a bad idea to do that, right? But end up getting married, have kids. But while I was in the military, I saw all these divorces. I saw these dads that were never around their kids. I see kids getting arrested for different things and all these. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this does not make any sense to me. And when I'm a dad, like I want to be a dad, so I don't understand why these dads are doing what they're doing. And I think that they were just playing through the same thing that I talked about that I did with money, right? What did they see? Are they living are they just living for somebody else as opposed to living what they want to be? Like, what is going on? Are they being true to who they are? Like, what is happening? But anyways, I saw all of that. And then when I was in the military, or when I had kids in the military, I was traveling a lot when I was stationed in Japan, which helped me honestly with the real estate stuff because I was traveling. So I wasn't around my wife and kids. If I was somewhere else, then I would spend a few months in Thailand, spend a month over in northern Japan, spend another month down in a different part of Japan, and go to wherever back to the States for a couple months. Okay, when I'm not working, what else am I going to do? I'm going to go find more real estate. I'm going to keep on doing all the real estate stuff. But when I came home one time, I went and took the trash out. And my oldest, he was probably 3 at the time, maybe 4. And he came running up to me, Daddy, don't leave again, like pulling on my pants. And I was like, nope, I can't do that. Right. I got to figure something else out. If I want to be a good present father, part of that is being present. And I try to tell military folks all the time, and I tell business folks now, you're going to affect your kids one way or another. Do you want to do it from the other side of the world while another man is raising your kids with your ex-wife? Or do you want to do it as a partnership with your wife, raising your kids, being involved? The decisions you make are going to adjust. They're going to tell that story one way or another. You're going to get to one of those events. So like figure out which one you actually want. Business side of the house. Okay. Do you want somebody else raising your kids while you're just running your business and you're building it for your kids, right? For your family. Yeah. For those just listening, I'm putting air quotes in the area. I'm building a business for my family, and you never see them. So I started the podcast because I said, okay, I'm seeing the same thing in the business world as I did in the military. I'm seeing divorces. I'm seeing non-present fathers. And I think that especially in a society that tells us that men are not very important. It can be, and honestly, we're finding out in the society that women aren't very important either. They can, you can have a boy put on a dress and all of a sudden it can become a girl. I think that we need to understand that men are important, women are important, but we as men need to stay focused on being good, solid, present fathers, raising amazing kids that are going to be benefits to society. And if we're building amazing businesses at the same time, great. So how do I learn from all of these guys? I'll start a podcast and steal all of their ideas. So I invite guys like you onto the podcast and say, hey, what are you doing? Because I want to steal your good ideas so I can become a better father while running a business. And there was one guy that I interviewed on my podcast. So Ben Glass, I just interviewed. By the time this comes out, maybe his will be coming out on my podcast. But he's the one who gave this other guy on my Brian Beckham the idea. He said, I'm going to build a business around my lifestyle. I'm not going to build my lifestyle around my business. And I said, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell folks about their family, right? Build a business around the family, not your family around the business. Don't plug your family in to the calendar where they might fit. Plug your business in to the calendar where it fits, which sounds great and grandiose, but it is possible, again, if you could figure out what's important to you. If all that's important to you is growing that business, then that's what you're going to focus on, and your family is probably going to take the hit for it. But I wanted to take, everybody's good idea and steal it so that I can be a better dad. That's why I've got core values up on my wall above my dinner table so that we could talk about those every week with my family. That's why we do one-on-ones. That's why we do highs and lows at dinner to be able to talk to each other. That's why we do family vacations. That's why they go to Fambundance trips with me and do business and family crafting together, because that's super important to me. And I stole those ideas from folks on the podcast. So that's kind of why I did it. And hopefully I'm encouraging other dads to do the same thing and become better fathers and better business operators because of it.
And how many interviews have you done, or how many episodes?
I think we just released episode 100, I think. Okay. So, yeah.
And through your time, you're consulting, you're working with a lot of people to build their real estate portfolio. You've interviewed all these people. What are some of the themes that you've seen, or patterns that you'd say are pillars to being an awesome biz dad, to being an awesome present business owner and father?
Yeah. Number one, marry right. Like, I mean, if you're already married, I mean, figure out how to make that right. Right. If you're telling yourself, oh, well, I didn't marry right. Adam's first rule was to marry right. Okay, but are you sure you're not the problem? You could say you didn't marry right, but are you sure you're not the problem? Like, have you sat back to realize maybe what you're screwing up in the relationship, right? So if you don't feel like you're married right, then you need to sit down and figure out how to make it right with your spouse. I'm not a big fan of divorce in a world that no-fault divorces are flown around all over the place. My opinion is that's a bunch of nonsense. You got married for a reason. And if you're not willing to fight, what are you teaching your kids? What are you teaching other people? That things aren't worth fighting for? And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of reasons to actually get divorced. So don't hear me say, if you're in an abusive relationship, you should stay. So sorry, side tangent there. But you should be working just as hard to keep your marriage together as you are your business together. Are you just ready to go bankrupt in your business because things got hard? No, probably not. You're probably going to work your butt off to make sure the business goes, but yet you're not willing to do the same thing as with your family. Marry right and work your butt off on that. Date your wife. Go on dates. Find the time to do it. I don't care if it's a date in the backyard with a glass of wine, looking at the stars, just having a conversation, because that's all you could do right now while the kids are sleeping and you don't have the money to be able to get a babysitter at the moment. Find a way that you and your wife can have an enjoyable time together. Marry correctly, have a support system, be rowing in the same boat in the same direction, not opposite directions going in circles. So that's one thing that I talk to people a lot about, because I'm very, my thought process is, so my family all knows my hierarchy. It goes my God, my wife, and then my kids, and then everything else is below that. My business is below that. Everything is below that, because if I put my business above my kids, yes, I need the businesses to be able to help provide for my kids, right? But if something happens and I need to be there for my kids, that's way more important than being there for my business. If I'm not setting my business up to the point where it can run because I've got something crazy with the kids, then I need to do a better job setting the business up. But so my relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with the kids, and they all know that that's the hierarchy. So dedicate that time with your wife to make sure that that's going well, that you guys are moving in the right direction, that you're feeling good about that. So that's how I usually chat with folks. How's that relationship going right there? Now that we've got that figured out, now let's figure out the relationship with the kids. All right. Where are you missing things with the kids? How can we plug things in with the kids? How can we make sure that you are being a present father? What kind of messages can you send to your kids? How are you communicating with them? Then let's work on the business side of the house. All right. There may be times, it's few and far between, but there may be times where I have to say, okay, we need to look at the business a little bit first, because if you let go of that business, it's going to completely fall apart. And that's going to be a problem. But you need to go back and have that conversation with your wife first, because she needs to be on board with that. That, hey, this is going to be a season where I have to focus on the business. Can we make sure that this family stays together while I buckle down and put my nose to the grindstone on the business, and get it working in the right way? What
are some of those pillars that are making things work for the guys that are successful? And I'm using successful as the air quotes if people are listening too, because everybody's going to have that different definition of success. Yes. Yeah. But in general, like the guys that feel like they're happy, they have what they want, they have the relationships that they want, like they seem to have it figured out. What are those things, those principles or core things that they've figured out, or habits that they have?
I think it goes back to being themselves, right? Are they being authentic to who they are and what their goals are? Not living somebody else's life. If you live in somebody else's life, you're going to be miserable. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be alone. Even if you have a ton of people around you, you're still going to be alone. So be okay with being who you are and the goals that you have. Write them down. All right. If you write down your goal, you are much more likely to succeed at accomplishing it. And I know that that's cliche and everybody else says it, and that's because it's true. And it works, right? So let's sit down, write down your goals, write down where you want to focus, write down where you want to be by the end of the year, by the end of 3 years, by the end of 5 years, and in 10 years. Let's figure out how we're going to build that out and the goals that are going to help us get there. The people that follow those types of patterns and are working towards something and have really good communication with their wife and kids are by far the most successful. Because they figured that part of it out. Like, okay, I've communicated well with my family. We are all on the same page. We are all working toward the same stuff. We all have the same goals and focus and mindset. So, man, like, we're successful. It doesn't matter how much money is coming in. One of the first things we try to teach people at ADPI is, what's your financial freedom number, right? What is not what is your goal income for all of the things that you want. No, like, let's look at your actual expenses you have right now and figure out how much that is. All right. If it's $5,000 a month, if it's $10,000 a month, if it's $1,700 a month. What are your actual expenses every single month? All right. Once you've made that amount, you're pretty free, right? Like once you have the income coming in to make that happen, especially if it's passive income from real estate. Passive is a misnomer, but we won't go too much down that path unless you want to. But if you have enough income coming in from those assets to pay for that, okay, well, now you're good. That's success. You've just reached success. That doesn't mean that you've reached all of your goals, but you've reached the success of having the financial freedom because you have enough money coming in for your expenses. Now, you may want to expand some of those expenses. Now, okay, well, then I need to have more assets to pay for that. But communication with your spouse, what does she want? What do the kids want? Where do we want to be? So those things, again, writing down those goals, understanding where you're growing towards, those are the pillars that folks need to have. And, I try to break it down on the family side as well as the business side. You do all of these things for your business. You're tracking quarterly financials. You are implementing EOS. You're building all of these things. Are you doing the same thing in your family so that you guys are all on the same page? Are you having level 10 meetings with your family? It doesn't have to be literally a level 10 meeting, but every Sunday, are you sitting down and you're having a conversation? Say, hey, this is what our week looks like. This is what we accomplished. This is the numbers of things we're trying to get done this week as a family. Like that, have those things, and that is going to be helping you feel more successful as well, because you don't just look back and go, where'd those 5 years go? I didn't do anything in those 5 years.
Yeah. We've been following your story and kind of bouncing back and forth as things have been going. I'm curious about what part of that story I may have skipped over, people tend to skip over, but it's actually been a really pivotal thing for you.
I'd say even before I got married, before real estate, and it goes back to the being confident in yourself and knowing who you are and what you're kind of going for. My deployment to Afghanistan was a completely life-changing experience for me. And I'm not recommending that everybody listening goes and fights a war in Afghanistan. Obviously not what I'm saying. There's going to be things in your life that are your war in Afghanistan, right? Where I realized I can stand up for myself. I can be who I want to be. I can chase the things I want to chase. I don't have to worry about all these things. Like, I was a bomb dog handler going out in the middle of nowhere with a special forces team, finding bombs and finding high value targets in the mountains of Afghanistan. Very different than your average Air Force guy would have ever done. And I learned a lot about what it means to, again, stand up for yourself with a team that doesn't know who you are, that doesn't know anything about you. Now I'm like things were just very, very different for me. And it was a lot to experience and it was a lot to go through, but I would not change it for the world. If anything, I would have made more of it. Like, can you give me more of all of this? Can we expand on this? Can we go deeper? Like, I wish that I could have gone even deeper into that world to really step up my game. What do you mean by
go deeper?
So I mean deeper in like even more challenges in that. Like, can I, like, how much more difficult can we make this? Can we spend an entire 2 weeks on the side of a mountain digging holes, climbing with my dog, finding things, eating MREs, catching bad guys, going out with different teams, doing different things, because it taught me so much more about what I'm capable of, where I can be, what I can see in life. And I often, all too often, forget to look back at that and go, you know what? You are capable. You can do some of these things, because I'll still get stuck in some of my old habits, my old ruts, my old feelings of, insecurity, and lack of ability to do certain things and all of that. But that was one of those pivotal moments, which is great because it was also not too long before I got married. Not too long after that, I got married. So that was another pivotal thing of like, wow, I'm not walking through this world alone anymore. And God has called me to be a leader of my wife. And what a difference that means. Like, and that doesn't mean the same as a military leader, right? I mean, I had a lot of military leadership stuff, but this is a very different leadership. So those are two things that I like, getting married and going through that life experience that was pivotal in becoming who I am and who I wanted to be.
When you look at that pivotal time in Afghanistan and going through those extreme challenges, yeah, you might not want, or like you said, you might not want to go to war for it to be that thing, for it to change you, to create that confidence for yourself. What would you be sharing with your kids or other people about what to take from that experience and how they might create something like that for themselves, to prove to themselves and like find themselves, if you will?
Yeah. So I've got a buddy of mine, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's got this company called Epic Grit, and he goes and does hard things on purpose. And that is something that I would tell everybody to figure out. What hard things can you go do on purpose? You have to figure out what you're capable of. You have to be able to put yourself in stressful situations. You have to go and do hard things in this life. And I think it's Alex Hormozy, or is it Chris Williamson? One of the two of them that always says the hardest thing you've ever done in your life is the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. Okay, like, great, that was the hardest thing. Now what? Like, that doesn't mean that's the hardest thing you can handle. That was just the hardest thing. Now go to something harder. Can you put yourself into a situation that makes it even harder, right? Maybe it's running a marathon. Maybe it's going on some of those crazy expeditions that people do just to kind of show that they're capable of different things. I try to get my kids to be they have a very different life than I did growing up. So if I can get them into challenging situations, martial arts is one of those that's great. Doesn't take a ton. Doesn't take there's something about somebody on your back taking the last breath out of your lungs as you're watching something fade away before you tap. That is like, wow, that was really difficult, because in the grand scheme of things, in that situation, you literally are almost dead. You can almost die doing that. But thankfully, you're in an environment where you're not going to do that. Now they're going to help you out with that. But put yourself in difficult situations to realize that you're capable of more than you think you are. And I grew up very soft. I grew up super soft. I was never in, like, the most difficult situations I was in growing up was we moved a lot, right? So I had to make new friends. That is difficult. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's tough, but that's not, if that's the hardest thing you have to do in your life is go make new friends, you've got a pretty good life. I was running around with BB guns and having a good time in the woods and playing with friends and all these things, but I never had a hard, tough life. And I think that society has given us such a blessing in the lives that we have. We're sitting in different countries talking to each other on a Zoom. Or on Riverside, and enjoying this conversation with probably 14 other pieces of technology on our desk that are helping make our life easier. Easy logins that just use our face to get into things, and a car that if you got someone like a crazy Tesla that'll pull up to your driveway for you and automatically park. We've got all these things to make your life so much easier. That's making us all softer. So go do some hard things, right? Again, you don't have to go to the mountains of Afghanistan to do any of this stuff, but go do a hard thing. Go figure out how you could stress your life out a little bit so you can realize that you've got some grit and you can push through some things, and you need to do the same thing for your kids. How can you show your kids that they've got grit, that they can push through things that are difficult? I fight my kids harder than I ever got fought when my dad was fighting with me, right? Like, my kids will get tapping out, ready to go. Plus they're in judo, so they get to get tapped out and thrown around in judo. So it's like, can I help them feel what it's like to have a hard, difficult situation and then work through it?
How do you combine that with empathy, compassion? Because I feel like you're pushing an edge. There's a very masculine energy to challenging, and sense that's like comes naturally for you, especially if you've been in the military. Has there been a harder side of fatherhood for you that maybe hasn't come as naturally?
So I think there's two questions there. One is the softer side, right? The empathy and all of that. And I'd say that it's taken work for me to have that, like, an actual true masculine drive, not Andrew Tate type of masculine. Like, I don't know if you know who he is, but none of that garbage. Like, I'm not, that's the actual toxic masculinity. But being able to be a supportive dad, when my kids need me to, I'm on the ground, I'm hugging, I'm crying it out with them. Literally will cry it out with them and have no issues doing that. But I'm also ready to toss them across the pool and beat them up and have a good time and be able to wrestle and do all those things, because I think that's super necessary. Because there are times where I have to be able to be super soft with my wife and help her through a situation and be a good, caring, understanding husband who's listening, who's willing to have that empathy. And that takes work. That's not always easy, because I'm again, a problem solver by nature. I want to fix the problems. I want to be able to go through all that. Sometimes you just need to shut your mouth and have the empathy and listen and be okay with that. But I think I grew up with two sisters and my mom. My dad worked a lot, so I didn't have a whole lot of. So when I said that I was softer growing up, I was always the one crying. I was always the one dealing with that. So we literally just had this conversation yesterday with my son, my oldest son. They've been catching rabbits in the backyard. We've got all these little rabbits that are running around, these little cottontails, right? And the one of them that they caught a couple days ago. When they brought it in, it had clearly been in a fight with some other animal, and it was not doing well. Like one of its eyes was kind of bugging out a little bit. It had a big wound on its side, and I was like, no wonder you guys caught this one. Like it's not in great shape, right? So we ended up kind of, giving it some water, giving it some food, and then we released it. And then yesterday we went back out there. So it was 2 days ago that we released it. Yesterday we went back out there, and the rabbit had ended up dying. And my son was crying, which I completely understand. And it took work for me not to cry. Like looking at his face as I'm burying this little rabbit, because he asked if we could bury the little rabbit. And I was like, absolutely, let's do that. And I thanked him for that. I said, I was about ready to literally just throw him in the trash can. But he has this heart that I used to have that sometimes I wish I had back with, like, let me go back and connect with that a little bit more. I've buried that part of me so much because of all of my experiences, because of all the things. So I had to have that conversation with him yesterday. He's like, why do I feel like I'm too emotional? I feel like there's too much. And I said, no, buddy, you're not. I said, buddy, I was way more emotional than you when I was younger. And first he's like, well, you didn't even want, I said, I had to fight back, literally to fight back tears because of watching you as I'm burying this little rabbit. Like it hurt me to see you feel that way. But what I've learned throughout my life is that I need to make sure that I'm controlling those emotions. It doesn't mean that I have to completely bury them forever. But let's say we're experiencing something really bad. Something really bad just happens in front of us. I can't tell you how many times that we've seen, a handful of times, a bad car accident right in front of us. I'm immediately ready, 4 ways on, parked on the side, going over to assess the situation on the phone with 911 as I'm pulling somebody out of a car. That's not time for crying. That's not time for being emotional about what I'm seeing. That's not time for any of that stuff. It's time to turn it on and go. Later on, I'll assess all of that, download what was going on, have a conversation with my wife, get it all off my chest, feel more comfortable with that. So I'm having those conversations. I said, will I be able to, if something really bad is happening, protect you, protect your mom, protect your brother, and protect your sister if I'm responding emotionally to what's going on? I can't. I've got to be able to control that portion of me. And it's taken me a long time to be able to control that. I remember being in the military. I don't even know if I've ever said this on a recording before. I remember being in the military, failing one of my tests, and I was crying with my uniform on in front of these other military folks. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I failed a test. Like, this is not. And I was like, I can't be that. I've got to figure out how to emotionally regulate better. So it took me a long time to figure out how to emotionally regulate better. And I'm not saying I'm great at it now. Sometimes I bury the sadness too much. But like I said, it has served me better to figure out how to emotionally, or how to control those emotions, assess the situation, be able to take care of what's going on, then go to the emotional side later, where I can download and say, hey, sit down with my wife, who I have complete and total confidence and comfort in, that I can have a good, loving conversation with her, expose all of those feelings, expose all of that hurt, not feel judged by it, and then be able to move on the next day. So it's been a big game changer in the conversation with them. And I'm not very good always at doing that, but I'm very glad my son asked me about it, because that is one thing I am good at, is being able to say, hey, you guys can ask me anything you want. Talk to me about anything at all. And that was what they wanted to talk about last night.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beautiful in that, creating that space for them to have that safety and comfort to go there. Because I think a lot of kids don't have that, even if it's unspoken, but like really creating that space for them to lean into whatever's present. Yeah. And also hearing too, like, I would put you in that masculine camp, like the way you show up, the way you look, your background is like very masculine, but to hear how you share and have processed and look at emotions and emotional regulation, I think is an important part of being a dad, because there is that protector side, there is that showing up and being able to handle tough situations. And I think maybe this is just my own opinion, that was over-indexed on too much in the past, and people burying stuff too much and not processing it after the fact and addressing that and like opening stuff back up, because that carries a lot of, you can say trauma, whatever it is, but like it carries on, and those patterns can show up and like impact differently. So to hear you speak of being able to switch on, but also be able to switch off and process, I think is a really important skill for anybody to learn, but especially to be able to communicate that and to show that to kids of like, yes, that is something you can do. You can switch on, but it's also really important to switch off, to
Very
process, to make sense of things. Wanted to maybe tie up this awesome conversation with what you're about to start to go do. which is to sell the house and go on this amazing RV trip. And
speaking of needing emotional regulation,
yeah, you'll probably need some of that on a close quarters long-term trip. Tell us how that came to be and what you're most excited for.
So it came because my wife, again, getting ready to retire after over 20 years in the military. And it was like what do we do now? Right. We started homeschooling a couple of years ago. We just finished our second year of homeschooling. And I was like, where do we want to travel to? What do you want to do? And she was like, I want to like bring our kids around our country, and see some things in our country. And I'd always wanted, I lived in a camper for a very short time. My wife and I were stationed at two different bases. It was a couple hours apart. And then we'd had our first kid at that time. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to be here very often. So I'll just live in the camper a couple nights a week. And then I'll be down at our house, again, a 2-hour drive to stay at our house. And I was like, man, I love the idea of like taking that camper around, bring the family around. Like, that'd be great. And like all these ideas just kept flowing. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What can we do? And I started researching a little bit more because, again, that's what I do. And I was like, hey, dear, what if we bought a camper and just traveled the country? Like one of those like drivable Class A, where the whole family's in there, and we just travel the country. You wanted to see all these sites. Like I could use, AI to help me build a route to hit every state, to hit all of, other than Hawaii. I'm not going to drive to Hawaii, but I have to hit every state, including go up to like Banff and some beautiful places up in Canada and check that out on our way to Alaska. Why don't we do like, that would be a lot of fun. And she was like, well, that would be interesting, and it took a lot of convincing, right? Watching different videos and showing her what it could look like. And we went to an RV show here. I'm down in the Tampa area. So there's Tampa RV show is huge. It's it's like the second biggest in the country. So I was like, let's go to this RV show. So we went to the RV show, and that's where my wife kind of was like, wow, I think we could actually do this. That's like, these things are really awesome. These things are really nice. I said, yeah, I think they are. I agree. Right. So I was like, well, why don't we just put everything in storage? The military will give us one more move on her way out. So let's have the military pay for the storage. We don't know where we're going to move yet. So they'll put everything in storage for 6 to 12 months, depending on, multiple different things. But so if it's sitting in storage, let's just do that, travel for a little while, and then find where we want to live and settle down, have them bring our stuff to our new house, and then we'll be good. Let's just go and explore. And it's turned into, okay, well, if it's a month and we realize we don't want to do it anymore, then we stop and we come back. If it's a year and we're like, I still want to keep going, then we keep going. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, let's just go on the road and figure it out. The kids are at a good age right now. My oldest is 10. My youngest is 2. So we have 10, 6, and 2 every 4 years. So they're like, I think this is going to be amazing. The kids want to do it. We want to do it. Like, I mean, it's not like in 5 years, my 15-year-old at that time is really going to be stoked about wanting to go live in a camper with me. So let's go do it now when he is, and have, there's this group called the Shinpaws, this family called the Shinpaws, and they've got an RV. They're real estate guys. And they've got their channel. They're driving around all over the place. They've been doing this for 9 years with their kids. And they never wanted to stop. Their kids love it. Their oldest just graduated high school. So I got on the phone with him and I was like, hey, like, talk to me, Goose. Like, what is it that you guys are doing? How's the experience been? And they just love it. They just get to explore and go and see things. And their kids are like, I love doing this. I've got so many extra, grandparents and aunts and uncles from all of these places we stop at, all of these different people. We stop at their house. We're just traveling around. And we've got family and friends all over the country. So why not go and see them on the road, and just let's go check it out. Let's go bring them around. So we're going to keep doing the homeschool from the road. And with the Class A, I could say, hey, if dad doesn't need a pee and you do, guess what? You got a bathroom and a kitchen and everything right there. So go ahead and make yourself a sandwich, go to the bathroom, sit back down. We're going to keep on driving and go see as much of the country as we can.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear more about how that goes and the experience of that. Because I think that's what I love hearing about in some of these interviews is what are people doing differently? What is not in the current social wireframe that people are operating from, and trying new things and doing things in alignment with their family values and what's important to them, which is exciting for me to hear. And again, exposes me to new wireframes and decisions that I can make, right?
Yeah.
My final question to you would be, and this is a question I ask everybody, if 6 months or 12 months from now you get to listen to this recording, what's one thing you want to remind yourself of?
I'd say maybe don't make sure you're not growing for growth's sake. Grow because you want because you're growing in a direction that you want to be going, which I think I constantly need to be reminded of. So too often, again, because of the society we live in, especially if you're around a bunch of business folks, like you grow for growth's sake because we're a business, we're supposed to grow. Well, and I do want us to always grow, but growing with a purpose means a lot more than just growing for growth's sake. Yeah, I think that would, boy, there's so many. I don't know. I'll stick with that one for now, but I could come up with probably 700 of them. So,
And if people want to find you and hear more about what you're up to, where can they go?
sure, you can go to adamlabarr.com and find me there. Find out kind of a bunch about me there. Adam at ralcapitalgroup.com. You can send me an email. The Biz Dad podcast, Facebook, Instagram, all the places you can find me. Just reach out. I love conversations. If you want to jump on a phone call, just send me an email, and I'll be happy to find some time to get on a phone call with you as well. I love chatting with new people, learning as much as I can, helping people out with anything and everything that I can.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thank you so much, Fife. Appreciate it.